Welcome back, fellow Vault Hunters. I've got tons of Borderlands 4 news for you today, including some fantastic news on the most recent patch that just rolled out with patch notes and new details from the team at Gearbox, and a big warning to fellow Vault Hunters about your weapons. Think twice before selling, dropping, or swapping your weapons, and make sure to do this first. I'll go over all of the details. Also, how well did Borderlands 4 sell within its first launch week, and how are those Metacritic scores looking? And the creative director tells us when we can expect weekly content updates, including the wildcard event. And I'll go over so much more news, including details on why enemies may suddenly feel insanely hard in the campaign, and the community's worries about possible incoming weapon nerfs, and so much more, including your top comments. Alright, time to gear up, Vault Hunters, and dive straight into the news. Alright, so first up, if you have not heard, the Borderlands 4 team has rolled out a shiny new patch for all of us Vault Hunters and released the first patch notes on their website as well. And this is what the Gearbox team had to say. They said this update improves stability on PC, smooths out progression, and updates the Gilded Glory Pack loot and rewards for a more seamless experience. Please restart your game to ensure that the update goes through and to prevent connection errors in matchmaking. If you're encountering any issues, please contact 2K Support for direct assistance. You can also read the PC Troubleshooting Guide, a list of known issues, or browse a list of support threads here. Now, the notes on their blog first go over the weekly minor updates you can expect in the game. So it says the following. Every week, we will see changes to which weekly big encore boss and wildcard mission is live. Maurice's black market vending machine is also on the move. And then it says weekly big encore boss. The weekly big encore boss is a tougher variant of an existing boss with an even more rewarding loot pool. It then goes on to say weekly wildcard missions. Weekly wildcard missions add challenging new traits to an existing mission. These missions feature a guaranteed legendary drop that you can repeatedly earn to get your ideal role. And next up is Maurice's Black Market Vending Machine. It then reads, go in search of where the Black Market Vending Machine has moved to and discover what's available in your game every week. Remember, while the location is the same, your vending machine items are different from other players, so ask around to see if someone has the item you're looking for. You can read more on the weekly changes in our in-game overview post. So the weekly big encore boss, the weekly wildcard mission, and Maurice's black market vending machine all sound very cool indeed and should really mix things up. Now, let's talk about the change list in terms of stability improvements, gameplay and progression, and then also loot and items, starting off with stability. So they said they've addressed crashes tied to animation states, audio, and collision checks, and they addressed various GPU-related crashes. So that's good news for the PC side of things. And then for the gameplay and progression, it says resolved an issue where the reward center could stop working after claiming the Gilded Glory Pack rewards. They addressed a progression blocker in the mission Talk to Zadra, where the objective could fail if players exited and relaunched mid-dialogue. And then they corrected doesn't own DLC warnings incorrectly showing up on non-DLC gear. And then they go on to say this will be fixed on consoles in the coming days. Now, in terms of loot and items, they updated loot pools, so Gilded Glory Pack guns no longer appear in standard chests. So all of these changes, they may be small, but it's definitely welcome. And again, this is going to be one of many patches rolling out because Gearbox is well aware of all of the different issues you guys are experiencing. They've already replied to a lot of these on Twitter and on social media. And if you haven't downloaded the patch just yet, it's only about 785 megabytes according to what my Steam said when I downloaded it yesterday. So not a very big patch, of course. And don't worry, if you're on console, you are not being left behind, because the creative director also responded about this as well. A fan by the name of Brian Corson asked this on Twitter and said, any plans on smoothing out console time stability? And creative director Graham Timmons replied and said, I don't like promising a timeline, then something happening, then not meeting that timeline. It's our priority one, and we'll release a console update as soon as it's ready. We have some great fixes in the console patch, but we gotta test it and make sure it's good to go. And then Bear responded to this and said, BS bro, we know you will release the console patch in 2 months when everyone is done playing the game to try to bring people back. So disappointing, should have been delayed. And then Graham replied to this and said, what would we gain from that? It's only in our best interest to get patches that improve the experience for our players out to them as quickly as we can. But we got to do our homework and test stuff to make sure we don't introduce problems. So yeah, as you can see, there's been some back and forth between the fans and the dev team online, but hopefully those console updates and patches arrive sooner than later and can be pushed out to console Vault Hunters soon. And I'll keep you guys updated on that as soon as I find out about the console patch. Now, one of the big questions that many Vault Hunters have had is how well did Borderlands 4 sell despite its initial issues? Will it have a long life or just fade away with no support? Well, a new article published by the Alenia Insight newsletter suggests that things are actually shaping up quite well, noting the following. So the article says, impressive early metrics for Borderlands 4. Borderlands 4 was last week's top-selling game across Steam and consoles, so it's no surprise that it's already managed to amass over 2.5 million players across all platforms. That amounts to revenues of over 150 million. The article then goes on to say at 150 million in revenues minus platform cuts, we estimate that Borderlands 4 is about 60 to 65% of the way to breaking even. We got to this number based on Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford's comments that Borderlands 4's budget is over twice that of Borderlands 3's, whose budget was $95 million according to Jason Schreier's sources. That means Borderlands 4's budget is likely somewhere in the ballpark of $200 million. The article then points out it'll easily leapfrog that, and needless to say, 150 million in revenue is huge and puts Borderlands 4 among 2025's most lucrative AAA launches. So based on all of this data, it looks like things are heading in the right direction for Borderlands 4, especially since the team is being aggressive with getting those patches out as quickly as possible and trying to communicate on social media about these various fixes, despite the fact that you-know-who, Randy Pitchford, sometimes denies what fans are saying. But regardless of what Randy Pitchford says, the team is hard at work on patches, which should mean that the sales numbers that we initially are seeing will continue to increase over time. And we have a big warning from fellow Vault Hunter PSO2 Redditor, who points out why you should inspect your weapons in detail before you drop, sell, or swap your weapons out. And this is what they had to say on Reddit. They said, make sure you inspect weapons that you're farming. The item cards don't show everything. Then they said, I've been farming for a very specific combination on the Oscar Mike rifle for a few days now and noticed something extremely important and admittedly frustrating to have only realized it now. I recently had 2 identical guns drop, same exact name, same exact underbarrel DPS, same same exact attachments and same exact physical gun model. Then they point out that the item cards were exact clones of each other with equals for everything as well. However, when I inspected both of them to apply a skin, I realized the secondary stats were entirely different. One had plus 17% critical damage, and the other one said plus 83% critical damage. This is an astronomically big difference in the gun's performance that is not represented in the item card. Please, please, please inspect your guns to make sure you weren't shafted by whatever this hidden stat is. So, a very, very good point pointed out by PSO2Redditor, and another Vault Hunter by the name of Roths chimed in on this and said, "Oh crap, you are right. I tried to figure out how to turn on secondary stats by default, but the setting isn't there. Very much a needed quality of life change. One Hellwalker was 20% critical damage, and the one in Bank was 58% critical damage. It's only for non-elemental guns. The element is considered as the secondary stat from what I have noticed." And Ellsworth asked a question that many of you may be asking as well, and asked, how does one inspect? I thought inspect mode in inventory was just, hey, look at this cool gun and spin it around, so I never used it outside of the first time. And PSO2Redditor responded and said, on PC for me, it's Y button to reach this screen. That 80% is what's changing between guns for me. So if you don't know how to inspect, it's the Y button on PC. And for console, I believe this translates to simply hovering over the weapon and then clicking down on the R3 stick. And now moving on to the next topic of today's discussion, when can we all expect the wildcard event? So the creative director had something to say about the upcoming wildcard event and responded to a fan about when we can expect such events to drop. So Noah Hacksaw said the following on Twitter: when should we expect the weekly changes for the wildcard event? And the creative director responded and said, unless noted otherwise, weekly content will be updated on Thursdays at 11 a.m. CST. This was the same cadence we had for Borderlands 3, and we found it the most flexible for our community. Sorry you missed it. Maybe its dedicated drop boss will get marked as a big encore sometime soon. Oh, and by the way, if you're finding enemies too difficult as you run through the campaign, there is a very specific reason for that, according to the creative director. So a fan by the name of Austin Oilers fan asked the following question on Twitter. They asked, hey man, any chance you guys are aware of the enemy level scaling bug going on? I'm on my second character that has been fully unplayable due to it at the same point in the story. Thanks for an incredible game. And Graham replied on this one and said this game is designed to add soft difficulty walls if you try to beeline the campaign. Go do some side missions and activities in the zone you're in, and then return to that area and try again. And the creative director went even further on this, replying to someone else about the same question and said it's intentional. There is a system behind the scenes that tracks your progression, and if you stay on the campaign for too long without doing side content, it'll get tougher. Go do some side missions and activities in the zone you're in, then return to that area. We have great side content and we want to softly nudge players into that content on occasion. Some of our most memorable characters and stories are side missions, so don't pass them up. So the takeaway is, if things are getting a bit too difficult and the enemies don't seem to be scaling quite right, that's actually on purpose, and it means you should probably go check out some of the side quests to beef up your character before taking on the main quests. And by the way, on Reddit, some players are expressing their concerns over possible nerfs incoming and that it will result in only a couple builds being worthy enough to play after such nerfs are applied. So here's what CTR053 on Reddit had to say about this. They said, please don't start nerfing stuff right and left. It's a single player game. Well, that's technically not true. It's also co-op, but I do get what they're saying. Now, they then go on to say, I hope they don't do like other games and start nerfing our fun builds. It's a single player game after all. They then go on to say, I get where some of you are coming from with nerfs being legit for the very broken builds out there, but here's my issue with it. Gearbox hypes up the game with tons of weapons, endless ways to play, break the game, and make your own busted builds. Then immediately they follow up with, but not like that or like that. Actually, here's the 1 to 2 correct in-game builds for each class. Enjoy. So the end result, a handful of viable builds that everyone gravitates toward, while any attempt to get creative just falls flat past UVH2. It kills the whole play your way promise, and like we've seen in other games, build diversity goes out the window. Everyone ends up running the same meta setups because nothing else actually works. So after hearing what CT053 had to say about nerfs, how do you guys feel about it? Do you think there should be any nerfs for any particular weapons, or perhaps there are weapons or abilities that need buffing? Sound off in the comments below, because Gearbox is listening. Let them know how you feel about buffs and nerfs. And if you're curious about how Borderlands 4's Metacritic score stacks up against other Borderlands titles, Forbes put together a quick article about this, which says the following. It says, this score may fluctuate, but as it stands, using the platform with the most reviews for each, we have the following scores. Borderlands 2 with an 89 Metacritic score, Borderlands 4 with 84, Borderlands 1 with 84, Borderlands 3 with 81, and Borderlands the pre-sequel with 75. So it does look like Borderlands 4 is actually performing very well on Metacritic when comparing it to past Borderlands titles. So this is very good news, but how do you guys feel about it? Do you agree with the 84 Metacritic score? Do you think it should be higher? Do you think it should be lower? Let me know in the comments down below. And I know you've been waiting, Vault Hunters, for your top comment, so let's dive right into it. So this is a top comment from Just Call Me V, I believe it is. They said, is it just me, or is the Echo 4 tracking line while driving really difficult to see? It's even worse when you're in Carcadia Burn because it's almost invisible. Also, if you use it for a custom waypoint, it's even worse. The color needs to be bolder and brighter ASAP. It's driving me crazy. And I have experienced this problem every now and then. It seems to blend in on certain environments, so I do understand what you're saying there, and a bigger and bolder line would definitely benefit the navigation of the game. Now, when I'm on foot, it's fine. I've never had any issue with that navigation line, so I don't think they should change it while you're on foot. But when you're on the vehicle, it is definitely hard to see in some cases. And next up is a comment from Got to Be First 81, who says, biggest thing for me, I started my campaign with my buddy hosting, but when I go into my own world, nothing is discovered until I go to that location. And they call me Pulp1317 chimed in on this one and said, this is how Borderlands always has been. It's kind of annoying. It's why I made multiple characters and do all the side type of content on my own and fly through the story on my own and then run it back with my boy when he's got time. So this is extremely useful to know, especially if you're new to Borderlands and you've never played the previous title. So this is something I wanted to include in the video in case you are new to Borderlands. There's a lot of people that have just joined up to this franchise for the first time. So that's definitely a good thing to know. But Vault Hunters, that's all the news I've got for you today. Hopefully this video gave you some solid info, and we've got plenty of more Borderlands 4 coverage and news coming up. So if you have not already, Hit that subscribe button to keep up to date on everything Borderlands 4, and don't forget to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. And as always, have fun out there in the Borderlands. See you in the next video.